I would assume some of the first missions that you have would be more of a air to ground to kind of get the seed and the well, not the seed, but the SAMs out the way, because you got to push through and get through the SAMs to actually get stuff done. Would that kind of be on the same lines of doing your first couple missions with a large package like that?
So my first couple of mission is actually just DCA because again in the end of the day we are on the underdog here. We got outnumbered by 2-1 in terms of airframes and in terms of ground forces. So and the DPRK are just throwing a huge massive OCA package down to whittle out what's remaining of our force. So the first couple of missions is actually just pure air to air, protect the what's left of our force, whittle down the DPRK airframe so that we can look for a counter strike, counter offensive, and be able to whittle that and do the same thing.
Welcome back to the Simulated Airspace. This is a podcast created by me, Prime Aviation Plus. I'm accompanied by Fisgas and Starlight. But for an introduction, if you're not aware of the Simulated Podcast, we are a podcast that talk about discussions on Falcon BMS, DCS, IL2, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and other sims if it comes across as we talk about it. This does not mean we'll only be talking about simulators. We'll also be talking about more events in aviation for the future and the past if it comes up in the discussions. My expectations are to have discussions of the many aspects of flight simulation while understanding why people fly them and what makes it so exciting to fly in the skies. So today we have a couple topics we're going to be talking about: the campaign mission, about planning, like planning campaign missions and doing the prep work to get to there. So we're going to go over what the different theaters are, how they differ, the threat guide, where to find it, of the different SAMs and air threats, the different types of missions like seed, deed, cap, and sweep, air to air, air to ground. And also, lastly, we'll be talking about what to know if you are planning a mission in single player or in multiplayer. So I'm Prime. I create videos on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. We kind of did a longer introduction in the first episode. Make sure you go watch that. I've been playing for about 15 years or so, and I really enjoy Falcon BMS. I also fly DCS. And then who else is here with me? I will introduce Starlight, he creates missions for the community. He flies F-15C a lot in Falcon BMS, and I'll go ahead and let him continue his introduction.
Hello, I'm Starlight. So yeah, I've been playing Falcon BMS for like a year, just a year. So but yeah, I've been picking up on it, and it's been my favorite game since. Love the F-15 because it kind of reflects on what I did in real life a bit, coming from a military background. But yeah, um, I started creating mission a couple months back because there's a lot of great communities like UAF who price like 30 people package mission, which I enjoy a lot, and some other smaller community. And I started learning to create missions so that I can see if it can make a enjoyable time for everyone during the weekend or the weekdays whenever they start flying, and see if I can use some of that experience to learn some new things.
All right, thanks for the introduction. Glad to have you on. Great person to have for campaign mission building prep. Pretty sure you have a lot of lessons learned. So next, we'll go ahead and introduce Fiscus for a little bit. Like again, I said, if you have not watched the first episode, go ahead and go and watch that. We have longer introductions of ourselves, and we talk about what is BMS. So if you don't know what BMS is, go ahead and watch that first episode. But I'm gonna give the floor to Fiscus.
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Fisgas. I have been playing BMS for quite a while, and I also am a content creator with a YouTube channel for which I make tutorials, campaign playthroughs, and some meme videos from time to time. Yeah, that's it pretty much.
Thanks. Great group of folks here. Going to be talking about the mission planning. So first, we're going to talk about some of the different theaters in BMS. I know in DCS it's usually called modules and maps, but in BMS we call them theaters. We have a couple of I guess official theaters. So we got KTO, which is Korea. So Korea operations, which is the normal one you see all the time in BMS. We have Balkans, which is over in the Balkans area, has Italy and you have like Croatia and all those other over there in that area. ITO, which is the Israel, and then we have um, the Lorik, which is not really a official thing, but Lorik usually kind of remixes all these theaters to make it either a little bit harder when it comes to systems. And I think we have sometimes Taiwan gets updated, and we have Taiwan. So we have the Taiwan theater over the water over in China with Taiwan. We have some other ones. We're not going to talk about it, but there are some other ones out there that are being used for the BMS community. But those are the kind of the main ones that is used in the BMS community.
Prime.
So for yes, go ahead.
Real quick, I think it's worth mentioning one of the another one of the now in 438 official theaters is HTO, the Hellenic Theater, which covers Greece, some part of the Balkans, and a part of Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. That's also now official to the BMS team.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me know because I remember seeing it. I've flown it a couple times, but I didn't know it actually went to an official thing. But yeah, it's very fun to use. You got the Hellenic F-16s with the CFTs, conformable fuel tanks. So you got, I think it's about it's like 600 gallons, so a little bit more fuel, but basically like a centerline tank, and you could use more fuel without having your external bags. And it's great to have those extra fuel in this F-16 because it's so small. So first, the KTO, so the Korea. I'm gonna go over what my favorite one is usually, but when it comes to the ease of the categories or the campaigns, my favorite one is Bear Trap because it's very difficult. Immediately you have SA-10s, you have the Su-30s that come from Russia, and sometimes in there you have China assets that come out as well. So it can be very difficult, and the amount of objects or the amount of assets that each side has, the blue side, which is your side, has less assets, and the red side has a lot of assets. So that's what makes it very difficult and fun in some senses. But on the other side of that, we have the easiest, which is kind of like Tiger Spirit. So there's MiG-21s, there's SA-2s, SA-3s, and more of the easier type of assets and equipment that the other side has. But it's still pretty fun because it gets very busy, and it's very exciting when it comes to getting around in the campaign. Fiscus, what is your favorite one to use in Korea?
Personally, I'm partial to the to Rolling Fire because it's like something that's is progressive. Tiger Spirit, basically blue side starts on top, like you mentioned. On Iron Fortress, it's a red side that starts out with the advantage. Bear Trap, I've never flown it very much, but it is, I think, the most challenging one from what I see uh, looking at it. The one I fly the most is Rolling Fire, definitely, because I enjoy the uh, progression. I guess that would be the word of the what's put up against us in Blue Force. Like, so for we start only against North Korea with their aircraft, with their equipment. They have some high capability, high threat SAMs. Like they have a couple of SA-10s around, but not very many. And they also have a couple of MiG-29 squadrons, but not very many. And everything else is like older, from MiG 23s all the way down to MiG 17s and their Chinese equivalents. And then after some time, I'm not sure what the criteria is, but almost every time it happens, China and Russia get involved in the conflict, and that brings its own. It's they bring their own high threat equipment and high tech aircraft, a lot of them, and the campaign becomes significantly harder when that occurs. I've seen the AI put out incredible amount of numbers of high performance aircraft strike aircraft and basically like strike carriers and strike at blue air bases if like there's no if the bar cap is insufficient, sorry, uh the red side will hurt blue side very significantly, especially in the initial stages when these two nations get involved. But yeah, that's the one I enjoyed the most for those reasons, and I think they got much more capable in 438 compared to what they did in 437. Back in 437, it was already an increase in difficulty, but in 438, the increase is much more significant and notable, I think.
Yes, yes, very, very good points. And I'm looking at the what the map looks like. So Iron Fortress is it it has you could tell like the peninsula of Korea. So it has different where places where it's actually farther away. So some of these campaigns you'll have to fly farther to get to action, depending on how far the planes fly south. So in Iron Fortress, you're about half of Korea away from them. In Rolling Fire, like you said, is more of a conventional view of Korea with the demilitarized zone right down where it's supposed to be, and then you have all the normal airports and air bases there, so you're not too far from the action. I know a lot of people don't like to fly too far away and to either do nothing or get shot down. So Starlight, what are the kind of the consensus in your opinion from doing all these UAF campaigns? What is the most exciting campaign to be used in like the giant packages of like 30 or so people in your opinion?
I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be Iron Fortress actually, because there's something romantic about being attacked and having to push back an entire occupied territory, because we've been pushed to the south end of Korean Peninsula. It's basically like Korean War back in the 50s. We've been pushed down by the DPRK. The UN or Allied forces have to push back with all their might, and yeah, that's just something romantic about being on the underdog for this campaign, which really excites the community, I think, coming from my experience. And secondly, because we're basically a 30 people package, a package is that's never a package that large, because usually in real life you will get a package of maximum 16, maybe 30, maybe 20 jets. So having to plan for 30 people, having to pick a theater for 30 people package is a bit on a difficult side. So, but because Iron Fortress, we don't, the Allied forces doesn't start out with a lot of jets. So basically, we can act as our own air force, and we can do some significant thing to contribute to the war, and that's the way it is. And thirdly, sorry, it is very easily customizable. You can add or remove threats using some tools if you want. You can customize difficulties, which I do a lot in the UAF community, because what's fun about shooting AMRAAM on a MiG-21. So yeah, usually I would just scale the threat up and down depending on the level and the performance of the package in the previous operation. Of course, finally, yeah, that just fine. In the end of the day, it's just a satisfying moment to just lead a package of 30 people to be able to fight back the bad guy, because they invaded us first and they pushed us into the desperate path, and now there's just something romantic about pushing them back and saving the day.
Yeah, I could see that because I'm looking at it. Like I said, it's about you're pushed down to the south end of Korea, and I would assume some of the first missions that you have would be more of a air to ground to kind of get the seed and the well, not the seed, but the SAMs out the way, because you got to push through and get through the SAMs to actually get stuff done. Would that kind of be on the same lines of doing your first couple missions with a large package like that?
So my first couple of mission is actually just DCA, because again, in the end of the day, we are on the underdog here. We got outnumbered by 2 to 1 terms of airframes and in terms of ground forces. So and the DPRK are just throwing a huge, massive OCA package down to whittle out what's remaining of our force. So the first couple of missions is actually just pure air to air, protect what's left of our force, whittle down the DPRK airframe so that we can look for a counter strike, counter offensive, and be able to whittle that and do the same thing to them. And it worked out pretty well. I think the first couple of events is just purely air to air and with a lot of air picture, with a very messy and heavy air picture, and which we did very well in. But yeah, and then it's just a counter offensive towards the ground forces overall, and killing the SAM to provide a clear avenue, clear pathway for the other other elements are in the war as well, such as the A10, so that the A10 can do their work without being harassed by SAM and all that. So yeah, it's actually very dynamic that way, and because of course I being an F-15 driver, I prefer air to air more. So you will see that I will have a bias towards an air to air mission than air to ground in a package whenever I frag.
Yes, yeah. The first, that's kind of like what Taiwan is, where you first take off and China is on the offensive and you're on the defensive. That's what it seems like it is in Iron Fortress, being that they pushed so far south. I see, looking on the campaign right now, I'm clicking on the different airports. I see there's MiG-29As, there's 21s, MiG-21s, there's some J6s, and some, let's see, IL-28s, the more MiG-21 Mike Foxtrots. So you said that you kind of adjust the difficulty by changing some of the types of airplanes at different airfields. With that being said, what with the J6 being out there, would you change the J6 or would you kind of just leave it there because it just has a gun and that could really sneak up on someone? Would you change the J6 or would you just keep it the same?
Well, actually, the J6 and J5 are part of a strike package, so they're doing the strike instead of just doing it to S for some reason in this campaign. So it is confusing to me. So just leave the J6, but the J5, as far as I know, on the order of battle of a DPRK, they are pretty much unflyable, very old use, poor maintenance. So I just remove them because I make them inactive. But I do add a bit more of MiG-29 because they do have they the real life number in the real life number they do have a bit more of MiG-29 than what is shown in the game. So just added that for a little bit of difficulty for the air-to-air player, especially ego driver like me, to practice and hone our skill while having fun in a package level mission.
Yep, yep. So, looking at the rolling fire, it seems to be more of a conventional type of thing. And I remember starting it at the sixth, starting rolling fire. That is, you're not on in the defensive. It's more of a neutral type of thing. So the North is doing their stuff, the South, the friendlies are doing their stuff, and there's not necessarily a giant push south from the North. So the tactic in rolling fire would be to uh, well, if you the first hour, everybody's doing something, so there's going to be planes out there no matter what. So the first hour is kind of like always going to be defensive, but after the first hour, the airplanes die down and basically returning back, and that's when that is a good time for the Blue Force to kind of go up and or fly north to take out any smaller number of airplanes because they're still out there, but there's just a smaller amount, and to actually locate where the SAMs are. So you could either take them down or locate where they are for the next package. In BMS, they actually have so there's a fog of war in BMS when it comes to the campaigns. So if you don't have an asset in the vicinity of an enemy air threat or surface threat, you won't see them on the 2D map. The 2D map is basically the map that you see when you're selecting your flight, and it has the map on there. It has where your steer points are, has, like I said, the symbology of all the SAMs, and we call that in the BMS community the 2D map. That map, it has all the SAM that you have, and like I said, if you don't have any assets near the enemy surface threats, they won't show up. So usually the SA2s show up because they're pretty easily to intel to see them and see their location. So the SA2s are usually there. You can see all the SA2s in your area. But when it comes to like SA6s or SA10s or 17s or 11s, you need to have intel. BMS sometimes has the ability for U2s to go out there and look for stuff. They have some theaters, you have drones, so RQ1s and MQ9s to be able to go out there and see stuff. So the mission planning portion is very important when it comes to campaigns to be able to understand what you're going to do first. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fiscus, you said that rolling fire was your favorite, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
So with that being said, what would be like? Of course, the first hour is a whole bunch of stuff. Like within the first, I guess, 2 hours, what would be some of the things you would look or plan to do during your campaign in Rolling Fire?
First few hours, definitely like Starlight mentioned, defensive counter air. But I found that uh, one tactic that works well, at least in Rolling Fire, it does for me, is prioritizing opening lanes into enemy air bases. So a little bit of seeds doesn't need like to take out the entire unit. Just knock out those fire control radars and go after the bases. Because if we manage to ground the aircraft that are on those bases early, then we have a free hand until the more advanced threats from China and Russia enter the conflict. Uh, you can get, even if they enter like at the end of the first day, if you manage to do a good job in offensive counter air taking out those bases, you have, I would say, like you if it goes really well, you can get like half a day of just very little to no enemy air opposition and just hitting the ground units pushing south across the DMZ and hitting the SAMs even more to impede their ability to get resupplied with fresh fire control radars and whatever else they need to get back into operation.
Yes, yeah, the different things of planning on how to get into the fight there. Um, let's talk about the Balkans, since the Six is currently on the Balkans now, which is over in Italy. We are in Deny Flight 2, which is, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six. There's six different campaigns in Balkans. And if you look on there, there's difficulty levels of each. Some of them are 90s era, where it doesn't have Link 16. Others have ability for different SAMs to be on different sides. And the biggest thing about the Balkans is that some of your friendly countries have like Eastern type of aircraft. So you could be flying around, you see a MiG-29, and it's actually a neutral, if not a friendly. So you have to make sure you're using your mode 4 and using your AWACS to declare what that aircraft is, because sometimes your mode 4 doesn't work because they don't have mode 4. Something, just because it doesn't respond doesn't mean they're enemy, but that's not in this discussion. But right now in the six, we're in deny flight 2, and we're flying about 100 miles or so until we get into some action. The first mission was, of course, not we didn't go as far as in the distance, because we were first doing ELINT, so electronic intel of the SAMs, because we're unsure of where the SA10s are. Like I said before, the SA10s do not show up on the 2D map unless you have assets in the area. So for our plan was to first go in and try to see where the SAMs are so we can take them out in the next mission. We were able to do that. A couple of our F-15s got shot down because of reasons of the SA-10. I will have a video of that actually on the Aviation Plus channel, explaining that exact mission. But we did get into some trouble with some SA-10s, and so that is what we're doing right now. I have not really had any experience in any of the other campaigns. I was wondering if Starlight, did you have any experience in the other ones, and kind of go over what those kind of consist of?
Unfortunately, no. I just picked this one because it was the first campaign I ever played, and once I joined BMS multiplayer session, and well, just struck my memory since then.
Yeah, that's
So,
fine. Yeah, memory's good.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I just want to relive the memory in a new form, V8 of course.
Yep, makes sense. And then the terrain is also updated. So if you think Korea is the only one, if someone the listeners think Korea is the only one that has updates to the terrain, Balkans also has updates to the terrain, and it looks very very nice. We had our time of day was like early, kind of like mid morning, so we had that shadow going across the land with the mountains in the background or in the foreground where we could see. But we are on the edge of the map, so we do have that edge of map fog stuff, but once we get into the actual theater, it looks very very nice.
I'd argue
Um,
that currently Balkans looks even better than KTO does. Visually, the terrain does, in my opinion, at least.
yeah, I could see that even before the new terrain, it had a more, I guess, dynamic tiles than Korea. So it had the blocky coasts and stuff. I remember back in 3.7 it had that, but it did when you're like on the actual land, it looked nicer sometimes than Korea. Um, so with the some of them don't have Link 16. So Fiskus, have you played a campaign without Link 16 after Link 16 has been implemented? Have you played any campaigns in Balkans without Link 16?
I have not yet. I plan on trying it though, but I remember from back in the day before Link 16 was a thing, and then the difference that it made having Link 16 is an excellent asset, and with not having it is gonna it's gonna have to go back to the old thing that every seasoned Falcon BMS player knows, which is uh, spamming declare for at AWACS. AWACS declare this, declare this, declare this, declare this, declare a bunch of stuff. Link 16 kind of uh, helped out in that aspect, which I think as well shows on the multiplayer side because uh, for those of you that fly operations without Link 16 in multiplayer or have done before in the past, in a lot of situations there was a lot of the comm was very much cluttered of people asking declares requesting declare from AWACS, and Link 16 kind of helped out with that. Not having Link 16 is kind of having to resort to that again, but it is what it is.
Yeah, Link 16. I remember talking to some F-35 pilots where they have, F-35. You start out with Link 16. Other jets did not have Link 16 at some point in time. So some of the old, more experienced, seasoned pilots started out without Link 16. So they aren't born on Link 16. So like you said, when you go back to not having Link 16, which some of our experienced BMS pilots have experienced, we know how to go back to the skills that we had without Link 16 and able to still function a little bit easier than those who were actually trained and brought up on Link 16, because it when it comes to situation awareness, it could really break you if you don't know what's going on. And like you said, the declare whole bunch of declares on the tactical frequency could clutter it a very very much. Um, there are ways. So I know Starlight in the UAF briefing, there is a, uh, a kind of like a checklist to kind of go through to make sure you're not shooting friendlies. If you could kind of explain that checklist from memory, I know you don't have it in front of you, but if you could explain that checklist from making sure you're not shooting friendlies.
Stand by, I'll have to find that because, yeah, yeah, we do brief this every time, but basically because it is pretty straightforward because that's not really a situation where you need a tight RE because basically we're at war with Korea, so there's no reason to really go into a tight RE like weapons hold until hostile intent. Basically, if you see them and if they're within that airspace, they are basically almost guaranteed hostile. So, but let me have to try to find the file because I definitely don't remember it as well.
Yeah, it's
So
mostly
just skip.
when you use, so you got mode 4, well, the options. So you have mode 4, you do a transmission to make sure that they have mode 4 transponder. You have your RWR, which is not as accurate, but you can use that to make decisions. So if it's a 16 and you see the only return in front of you is a dot, and you only have a 16 on your RWR in that direction, it's probably an F-16. Don't shoot at it. However, on the contrary side of that, if it's a you only have one dot in front of you, one return, and it's a 29, and you know you have enemy 29s in the area, it's probably that 29. Also, you have your TGP to be able to look if you're close enough, and that's some of the generalizations of the order of things. But I think there was something specific in there where it had if you mode 4, I think 4 times, and your TGP is good, you can have the ability to do it, but we all know that mode 4 is not perfect. Sometimes it doesn't work. Usually the other team doesn't have it, and it does not. The lack of mode 4 does not deem a declaration of hostile. So don't shoot at something just because it did not return. The only thing that mode 4 does is determine that something is friendly. It never determines if something is enemy. It only does it if it's friendly.
Yeah. So basically, first of all, the RE say that enemy unknown aircraft must go through a Mode 4 scan, which again, if it return as a good Mode 4, then well, most likely it's friendly, but of course you can't be sure until you VID them, and of course once you VID with either your TGP and anything like that, or declare even a declare from an AWACS, then yeah, most likely you're friendly. But again, if you don't have that Mode 4, then you will move to the next stage, which is called Bogey. Bogey is basically also unknown. We are not sure yet. So we'll have to go through a process called a positive. We have to go through a positive enemy identification to upgrade that to a bandit. And what positive enemy identification can go through many different method. So it's a point of origin. If someone's coming from the North Korean area airspace, then most likely it's gonna be called an outlaw. Or you can have NCTR, which is a tech that let you use your radar to scan the intake of the aircraft to make sure that you can identify it using the radar scan itself. So that's pretty nice as well. Or you can use your snip RWR. And of course, the VID is also a good valid thing to use to get a PEI, positive enemy identification. Once you got either one of them, then you can upgrade it to a bandit. And finally, to declare a hostile on anything, then they will have to have some kind of other level of standard. So yes, whether they are inside airspace. So basically, like I said, since we're fighting North Korea, they are at war with us as long as they are fighter type. They're inside North Korea, or they are anything that's inside North Korea that is not identified as a friendly is basically called hostile. So that's a pretty chill ROE. But let's say that in a campaign where you haven't fight China yet, and China is not supposed to join the war, so you see them coming from North Korea, they just doing patrol there. You got a VID, it's a flanker. Then you got a Doom bandit, but again, you're not supposed to go to war with China, so it stays as a bandit unless uh, he'll do a hostile act or intent, which can be either a weapon, a spec. So either he locked you up, that means he had a hostile intent to shoot you, or he of course will launch a weapon on you or move into a BFM position, which means that he is also intent to kill you, at which point that he is clear to be engaged hostile. But of course, in BMS, it is very most likely that's not gonna happen, and most likely in a dynamic campaign when you're fighting like no crew only, then yeah, as long as you get to the bandit criteria, most likely it's gonna be declared hostile immediately because they also uh, complete the criteria for a hostile declaration coming from a bandit.
Yep, and that dynamic campaign part of it where sometimes the AI does some stuff where they kind of like skirt into your territory, so they'll go over the border and they'll just turn back around. They're doing a couple of things where it would probably happen in real life. One, they're kind of baiting you to come closer to them to kind of bait you into their SAMs. So if you see enemy skirting over your area and then they like beeline back north, back to where they came from, um, you need to be aware that there's SAMs up there and they're literally taking you to like a SAM bush. So they're taking you back to their SAMs. They want to be able to fight. They want to be able to fight you in their territory because they have SAMs over in their area. So if you're chasing someone out, make sure you're aware of that tactic that the AI definitely uses in BMS. So speaking of all the threats, let's go ahead and talk about the the process of planning a mission in the BMS campaigns when it comes to multiplayer or single player. So the first thing, there's many first things, but they're all kind of pretty even. But the first thing you need to know before you get into the aircraft or before you get involved in threats is to know your threats. So you need to be somewhat familiar with all of the airplanes, all of the SAMs in BMS to to understand basically what they could do. So if you go into your if you're able on the computer, go to your BMS install folder, go to your docs, the BMS manuals, and the threat guide is something very useful for everyone who plays Falcon BMS. So in there, it goes over all of the SAMs, all of the missiles, all of the boats, and all of the aircraft that BMS has to offer. So you can look up what SAMs or what airplane you want, and you need to be familiar with them. So for example, if you have a whole bunch of, let's go with a pretty difficult one, SA-17s. So if you go to the SA-17 block, it has like little rows of the threats. It goes over what they look like. So it has a general what they look like, the RWR symbology of different RWRs. So in this case, it's a 17, and then the search radar is a D, the delta. It tells you what kind of missile or what kind of radar it is. It tells you the minimum missile range. It tells you the maximum missile range. It tells you the typical engagement of the SAM site, and it goes over all of that in here. I actually have a threat guide or threat reaction video series on YouTube. Uh, it's like Falcon BMS threat reactions, and it'll give you. I go over each SAM how to get away from it. With the SA-17, that is a very difficult SAM to get away from. The only way to get away from it is excuse me. The only way to get away from it is to either pure luck or getting behind a mountain, which the missile can't hit you behind a mountain. So those are basically the only two ways you can get away from SA-17 because it's very quick, and it's a short range missile. So you're already close once it shoots at you. So it's going to be very hard to actually get away from it when you get shot. What? Goodness. Fiscus, what what are the well? There's two different types of SAMs. There's the SHORADs, which is the short range missiles, and then the long range missiles. Um, when it comes to the short range missiles, which one, in your opinion, do you think is more dangerous when it comes to short range or long range missiles?
Short range, I'd have to say the SA 15. The SA 15, if you are under, I don't recall off the top of my head. I always fly at no lower mostly. most of the time I fly no lower than 22,000 feet if I know in that theater an SA-15 is present, because it will shoot you, and if you're within their WES, you had better outrun the missile. Maybe not outrun it laterally, but climb out of its grasp, because it's a very very hard missile to lose executing defensive maneuvers. Your best bet is to not get engaged by it at all at first. I don't recall if it's been a while since I've been shot at by one of those. I don't recall if you get like a missile launch warning. But you were asking about the long range ones. The SA-17s are very, very dangerous, and the SA-10s are very, very dangerous as well, especially because you don't get launch warning from them. You only get a warning after the missile is already in the air and active heading for you. So those two long range ones, those would be my currently my most challenging ones to face.
Yeah, SA10 is definitely something to be afraid of because, like in my threat reactions, so the SA10 there's no launch warning. It's has a missile engagement zone of 45 to 50 miles. So it'll shoot at you at 50 miles, and it expects you to continue getting closer, which increases the chances of it hitting you. So there's no launch warning. It's only subtle indications that it may be looking at you, and you have to kind of assume that it launched at you. Basically, the difference between the inner and the outer ring on the RWR, the outer ring usually means that it's the acquisition radar or the search radar looking and searching for targets to basically identify. Once the fire control radar, which is the radar that uses that guides the missile to its target, so it's two different radars, so they use two different frequencies, so the RWR can kind of determine which one is which. So the fire control radar comes on, and the only reason why you would turn on your fire control radar would be to fire. So it immediately puts that radar on the inner ring, giving you the indication that it's more of a threat. So once that happens, you have to assume that it launched at you. There another level of assumption would be if it starts to chirp. So it goes as it puts the diamond around it, and it puts it as priority. That's what the RWR does, as putting a diamond around it, puts it as priority, and then it starts chirping at you like once every second. So it's like a literally like a cricket chirp. So it chirps at you. That means that it's tracking you, and that is about a 99% indication that it launched at you. That the timing of that is not always perfect. So if it starts chirping at you, it does not mean it just launched at you. It could mean that it launched at you 45 seconds ago, and the missile is already halfway through its full path to get to you, and it's already like 60% of the way towards you. So if you get that chirp, it may or may not be too late to actually do anything. If it's too late, then you're going to get hit. But the only way there's kind of a couple ways to get away from an SA-10. The first is to not get shot at it. Two is to kind of go as low as you can until the SA-10 disappears from your RWR, but that puts you in the range of the Manpads, which is the IR missiles from the ground that don't get any warning at all because they use IR. So if you descend to get out of the SA-10, the view line of sight of the SA-10, you could do that. It will work, but you also put yourself in danger of the Manpads down below. If you're lucky enough, you could turn in the opposite direction, so turn away from the SA-10 and hope that you have enough speed and you can actually outrun the SA-10 in that regime. But those don't always work. But the SA-10 is definitely a difficult SAM to to stay away from and not get hit by. Um, Starlight, what is? Do you have any SA-10, or actually have you ever came across an SA-20? It's somewhat new in 3.7 and 3.8. Have you come across SA-20s quite yet?
Only In real life experience, I mean, I've been to some of the Vietnamese S400, which are codenamed SA-20, so I kind of know how they look and the composition of the work. But yeah, I've never seen them in combat, and I'm interested to see how BMS gonna model them.
Uh, Fiscus, have you come across any SA-20s?
Negative, not at this time. SA-10s
Yeah.
definitely a very high threat. Sorry for the self plug here, but on my campaign playthrough, I on one of the missions I did, it's up on my channel. There is a mission where I'm being escorted to strike an airbase. We're doing Oka strike, and ahead of us is an, I don't recall if it's dark cap or an escort of Eurofighters. And basically, as we are approaching the coast, we're approaching the took off from Gunsan, went north along the western coast of Korea. As we approach the coast, I start seeing the data link signals from them like just dropping altitudes. The entire flight got knocked out by an SA-10. They didn't even like try to defend or nothing. They just got schwacked completely. And basically, I had to take my flight low level and risk a low level ingress and strike and then outbound low level as well and exposing the flights to low level threats like you mentioned, but it worked out. But yeah, the SA-10 is definitely like it won't give you any breaks. Probably when it starts chirping at you, it's probably a good idea to start thinking about what you're gonna do like immediately.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, the 10, the 20. So I think it was in 4.37, in the Greek theater. I think HTO. They have some SA-20s in there. So basically, you could just imagine a SA-10 and just double its range. So it's an SA-10, but the range is like 90 miles. So you got the same chirp, you got the same inner ring, outer ring, but it could shoot you at 90 miles. So that's something that's very, very dangerous, and it could basically be able to cover a whole area and negate you from getting in that area. And I think for our current stuff, I don't think if you're high enough, you can probably get the harm to maybe get 90 miles, but that's not always going to be the case. So it kind of makes it difficult to be able to take out the SA-20. Maybe some JSOWs or stuff, but 90 miles is a very far.
I think JSOWs are going to struggle at achieving 90 miles, and they can
Yeah.
shoot down your harms too, can't they?
Yes, they can. SA-10s and 20s are able to shoot down the harms because they could track up to, let's see, I'm looking at the 10. The 20 is not in the threat guide yet, but the SA-10 can track. Let's see, I'm looking. It could track at least. I remember it tracking at least 4 or 5 people. Actually, it doesn't even say it in here. It should say it in here. Grumble, Big Bird. Yeah, it doesn't really say it in there. Pretty sure I thought it did, but I guess not. But I know for a fact it could shoot. It could track at least 2 people. But I've seen it shoot down like four harms at once. So it could track a handful of people or a handful of targets at once and track all of them and shoot them all down. So that's another thing where you have to shoot a whole bunch of harms to maybe get one to be able to hit it, but it might shoot all the other harms. And also it has home on jam, so make sure if you're around some of these things that you don't have the your ECM on because it could track you without anything. So that's also dangerous as well. But there's other ones in here. SA2, I think some of us have gotten contact with SA2s. They're easy to get to see, but if you're heavy with bombs, getting ready to hit it or something, the SA2 could be something hard to get away from because you're heavy with the bombs and slower when it comes to speed there. But in other words, make sure you're looking at your threat guide, making sure you're aware of all of the threats in there because you don't want the first time you coming in contact with the threat is in the actual game getting shot at it. You don't really have much time to reference your threat guide to see what to do in a certain situation. In So all those threats are there. Some of the IR threats. So we talked about manpads a little bit. Um, Fiscus, do the is there like a like IADS, integrated air defense system? Is it usually a good idea, or does the campaign system usually put IADS in kind of organizes them so they put like a SA6 in an area and then they also put manpads in the area, or do they just kind of randomly put manpads everywhere, or do they kind of have an actual integrated system in the SAM system in your experience with playing in campaigns?
Most of the units in the and I'm talking about rolling fire and modern types of campaigns here. Uh, Most of the units have some sort of manpads with them, um, be it uh, be it whatever it may. But most of the time, they have some sort of manpad capability with them, at least. Even if it's an SA2, they might have just an Igla or something like that, which is not a too terrifying a threat, I don't think. But still, it's something to definitely needs to be if you're attacking one of those, need to keep that in mind if you're low altitude. Up to other types of threats, I've seen like I'm at least I believe, if I'm not recalling this incorrectly, but some of the SAM units have also attached to them like other higher level type threats like SA-15s and other types of Tunguskas also as well, stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely like an SA. If you think on a modern type of campaign that you're gonna just run low altitude and drop a few Snake Eyes at an SA2. Keep in mind that there's hardly just those launchers and those radars. There's other stuff around, even AAA guns. There's routinely AAA guns on these units as well, not just the frontline units.
Yeah, there's some type of teamwork because they have the long range SAMs, and then the long range SAMs keep people from getting close. If they do get close, we have the short range SAMs who can take out the close folks, and then if they get low, outside of the SHORAD, the short range SAMs, so outside of the line of sight, there's infrared. So they're like all over the place. So it's like little tiny minefields of SAM sites, and especially if they really want to protect that area, they definitely have different levels of protection, and the protection gets more and more dangerous in a sense the closer you get to the target that they're wanting to protect. So about all these threats, what kind of uh, same thing with air threats. So make sure you know about MiG-21s, MiG-25s, what type of missiles that they have, and make sure you know what they're capable of before you get into a campaign and come across them. So I'm gonna move on to the types of missions and what to plan in a package. Uh, in so Starlight, could you kind of explain the what a package is? Like, is there different roles for each flight? Is it always the same type of package? Can you have all one role in one package? Or kind of explain the philosophy of a package in Falcon BMS.
Well, definitely can just explain it in a military way, but basically, from what my understanding is, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, package is basically just elements of flights trying to do their having their own specific tasking to achieve the same goal. So it can be the same task such as DCA, or we're trying to such as DCA but with different areas. So a package can be filled with DCA flights. So there might be 3, maybe 4 DCA protecting each AOR of the and each objective high value asset. So there's that. There's also an OCA package, which is offensive counter air package, made for attacking. Into attacking into a more offense is more on an offensive side, attacking into either strategic SAM, and yeah, or air bases that are protected by SAMs, The reason why you need different elements is one flight is not enough for. Sometimes one flight is not enough for a mission like this. Sometimes you need two, maybe three, even four flights, just to achieve a mission, depending on the complexity and the threat level that they give us. So maybe let's say I'm attacking an airbase with an SA protected by an SA-10, and that airbase most likely gonna have some kind of efforts that are scrambling to intercept. So we'll definitely need some kind of escort or target to make sure that an air-to-air and the strikers as well as the sea players are not disturbed by the air-to-air and they can focus on their tasks. Of course, being an SA-10, you need some kind of C players or D players to be able to knock out the SAM and suppress the SAM while the striker can do their job of bombing the base. Of course, I can go into the nitty gritty of having a growler or an EA aircraft, dedicated aircraft to be able to support the package in order to kill that SA-10. So it can be very dynamic. It can be one tasking. It can be multiple tasking. But basically, the gist of it is just multiple flights in the package is basically just assigned to do their own job and be able to achieve the desired objective, whichever it is.
Yeah, it's a packages. It's to be able to get a common goal. Like you said, you have seed, suppression of enemy air defenses, and then you have deed, which is destruction, which they could kind of do the same thing, but the seed, the suppression is not necessarily the job is not necessarily to destroy the SAMs. Their job is to actually suppress the SAMs, and harms out while the SAM is active is suppression. Sometimes just being out there and doing like the growlers you said, the electronic attack, that could be considered as seed. So you're suppressing the SAMs, giving them the inability to see targets and actually go after people. And then deed is their job is to destroy the SAM. With seed using harms, the outcome could be that the SAM gets destroyed because one of the harms get through, but that is not necessarily their goal to destroy the SAM. It's to suppress the SAM. But deed, their goal is to actually go in, hopefully after the SAM radar is down, um, in a more uh, in a more dangerous environment. They would go while the SAM is still up, so they would go low level, or if it's a shore rad like the SA-15 that Fiskas talked about earlier, the maximum height or the typical range of an SA-15 is only about 20,000 feet. So if you're above 20,000 feet, um, I'll probably say give it a buffer of 22,000 feet. If you're above 22,000 feet, it probably won't shoot at you. So you are able to do a deed against the SA-7 or SA-15 without having to take out the radar site. So you're able to destroy them there. The DCA, which is the defensive counter air to protect your own area if you're being attacked. So Fiscus, in your experience, what are kind of some of the things you would do first in a campaign? So it's like the first hour or whatever. What are some of the things you would take into consideration when doing your first campaign in a mission? Single player or multiplayer? Single player is different because you're by yourself, but multiplayer could be a little bit better because you have multiple people to fly with, and you can actually construct a package with the different aspects of a package. So what are some of the things you would plan in a mission in single player and multiplayer?
Are you referring right to the start of the campaign,
Yeah,
or
the
at the
start of the campaign,
outset?
like the start of the campaign, like you're getting into a campaign and you're looking at what the campaign looks like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like the first hour. What is kind of the things in your mindset that you're kind of going through?
First hour, if I'm the one planning the packages, is clear lanes. Uh, that's what I like to call it, at least. Clear lanes of SAMs, deeds, missions, seed missions, anything that can reduce the enemy air defenses while being escorted, because like we established earlier, we on at the start of the campaign, there's a big threat of enemy aircraft coming down in high numbers. So that needs to be a consideration. So my initial thought, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, my initial thought is to clear lanes with the intent of then being able to go strike at the bases where these aircraft are being launched from. That's hour one is definitely my priority. Open up lanes to then fly packages through them. Open up lanes in the enemy air defenses as much as possible.
Yes, I agree. The same type of thing. Starlight had to go. He had he had to work, so he had about an hour or so with us. So it's been about an hour. But we are going to continue the conversation with us. But I do agree with the planning to get, because you can't do anything if there's a SAM coverage on everything. You can't even get in there to attack the aircraft that are attacking you. So you have to get an actual clean avenue of like direction to get through the SAM. So definitely C deed at first, and then also if you are in a multiplayer sense, you would of course have seed and deed, and then you would also have the cap, so combat air patrol. So you would have some dedicated air-to-air uh, flight to be able to take care of you in the air-to-air regime, because they're definitely going to send some air-to-air uh, assets to come and get you as well. So yeah, definitely make that clear avenue of fire first, and get in there as soon as you can. So after, or I guess the first wave of SAMs are out. In my opinion, if you do get that first wave, let's say if there's a SA2 here, SA3 there, and a SA10, and there happens to be an airfield within that WES, or within the missile of, or the SAM range, if there's an airfield in there, I would recommend start going after the airfield to see if you can negate them from launching any more aircraft, to kind of push them back, continue to push them back. So you take out the SAMs, you take out the aircraft, the airfield, and then if you have time, then start working on the actual vehicles that have the ability to actually push down south and to take over the towns in the south. So the point of, or the aspect of the campaigns, whether or not you win or lose, is the taking over of different cities. So if they take out this, or if they take over this city, and take over means that they occupy it and they take over it. So make sure you're able to get out there, and then once you have all the SAMs and the airfields destroyed, then start taking out the air to ground targets, the vehicles, so they can't move south and take over some of your cities. And then that just keeps happening. The further you go up, the further you go up, and then also the same thing happens with them. So the red is doing the exact same thing. So they're trying to push you back, taking out your SAMs, taking out your airfields. So you always have to make sure that you're ready for a attack on your airfield, especially if you're close to the flot area.
Yeah, definitely. And also personally, me after say it happened with me on this campaign that I'm currently playing through. Um, we managed to take out the bases very very early on. It was one of the 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 one of the times that I recall the Oka strike plan playing out really really well. Like at the after first few hours, uh, most of the air force was grounded except for a couple of two or three airfields north past Pyongyang. Um, and then my plan was to like stop the enemy push dead in its track, dead in their track as soon as possible. So uh, interdiction missions, plenty of them. When I got that notification that the friendly ground forces were now going to push and go on the offensive footing, I went after a few of the factories, which is also something that might escape some people. Like if they're planning a mission on a tactical engagement, that's not normally something people go after. But on a campaign, don't underestimate striking factories, any facility that provides war materials and fuel to the enemy and replacements.
Yeah, the factories are something that some people kind of miss. The nuclear factories, the power, and that's more of a deeper understanding of how the campaign works. So you are able to destroy factories, and the factories create ammunition, supplies to actually repair the airfields that you destroyed to negate them from using their airplanes. So you are able to destroy the factories to slow down the the productivity of creating and repairing those other airfields. And same thing with supplies. Because with the whole campaign as a whole, you use an AIM-120, you come back without the AIM-120, it is now you have one less AIM-120. You die and you have six AIM-120s, you now have six less AIM-120s. So the supply aspect of the campaign is also important. Same thing with airframes. Of course, if you don't come back with your airframe, you have one less airframe. But there are periodic supplies where I think it's in-game time, like a couple hours or maybe 5 hours or something. So there is the ability to be able to destroy something, a SAM or a airfield, and then 5 hours later, in-game time, it's actually been repaired. So taking out these factories and taking out the repair battalions can actually slow down that process and give you a little bit more time when it comes to having the assets out of commission during your process of your package type.
To your point of what you were saying about it's something I advertise about thinking of or having a mindset of not taking uh, too many unnecessary risks. Uh, is I've seen there are a lot of people, and I mean, I don't who am I to dictate what people do in their missions or not, but I think sometimes this stems from maybe not as much of an understanding of how the campaign goes. But I see a lot of people like just dropping their after they're done with the mission, they went to strike something. They're coming back, job done, everybody's coming back, and they want to get home faster, so they just drop their fuel tanks and to squeeze out some more speed out of the aircraft and to conserve their fuel. Now that's fine. Dropping tanks, uh, if you're in threat, if you're under threat, defending SAM, defending against an enemy aircraft, whatever, do it after absolutely if you need to. If you don't need to, I would suggest as much as possible bring those fuel tanks back because I've been in missions. It's been a while since this happened, but a group I used to fly with years and years ago, there was this very pervasive tendency. A couple of us noticed that it was happening. Even the campaign, the game master, the guy that was running the campaign, noticed that was happening, but he didn't say anything. It got to a point like middle of the second day, we were out of wing tanks, and the F-16 isn't known isn't an aircraft exactly well known for its extremely long range without the wing tanks. The only thing we had available to us to extend our range was a centerline fuel tank. Now that presents another problem. You put on that tank, you can't then carry the ECM jammer, and that fuel tank can only get you so far. The wing tanks are much more can get you much further. Then you need to start planning missions around where is the tanker, where are we going to place the tanker, the timelines for refueling, and all that. That adds an extra layer of complexity, sometimes unnecessarily. So that's again, like I said, uh, if you don't need to drop the tanks for like defensive movement or defensive actions, try to bring them back. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I have some people do the same thing. They just want more speed. But like you said, if you need to jettison them, like you're getting shot by an SA-17, then you'll have a chance because if you get shot, you're not taking them back. If you jettison them, you have a chance of getting away from it by getting as fast as you can down low. So you might as well just jettison them. But yes, if you keep jettisoning your tanks, you're going to eventually run out of tanks. Uh, BMS does have the ability to, if you return with your tanks, you still have tanks. So that is definitely a thing there when it comes to uh, using or not jettisoning your tanks so you can have them as later. And yeah, the F-16 is not uh, known for its lengthy legs when it comes to the fuel amount that it has. Another thing with missions, so I create missions a lot at the sixth, and there is a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not really going to get into, but I have a bunch of videos on how to create a mission in the tactical engagements, which is it's not a campaign. You have to create the squadrons and you have to create the actual flights that everyone makes. So if you want to have a package, so you have to create the SA2, you got to create the enemy air threats to come out and attack you or to come out and fly in the area, and then you have to create the blue side to be able to fly out to that area and take out the SA2 and another flight to uh, air to air to cover them air to air. So you got to create all those things, but when it comes to actually planning, you need to know what you're going against, what is it being defended by. So like we said, all the SAMs. Make sure you know what the SAMs are. Make sure you know what the air threats are to understand what you need during the planning process. And all that stuff is important when making a mission. When it comes to making a mission, and you're the package commander in a sense. So you basically the package commander is in charge of the decisions at a package level to be able to abort the mission. Number one, to abort the mission based on threats and other things. To continue the mission, to either delay the mission because the air-to-air picture is a little bit more than what they anticipated, so they got to delay the strike package from flying in at a certain amount of time. So that's kind of the job of the package commander, and usually the package commander is the one that created the mission as a whole. It's not always the case. Sometimes the package commander or the mission creator wants someone else to who has less understanding of the mission, because if you create the mission, you kind of know what's going to happen. But in BMS, it could change every time. So you can have the same mission and run it multiple times, and it's not going to be exactly the same. Sometimes the AI flights on the air-to-air side, so the aircraft, they could either be a little bit late, they could turn here, they could do a split, they could try to kind of bait you back into their SAMs. So when it comes to TEs and Falcon BMS, it could be different every single time. But sometimes the mission creator wants the responsibility to go to someone else who did not create the mission, to give them a more of a surprise, because the person who created the mission kind of already knows what happens. Fiscus, have you had any I'm pretty sure you've created missions for online in like campaigns. So if you had 10 or 12 people to create a mission for, have you had the ability to create missions for 10 or 12 people in a multiplayer environment?
Yes, I have. And yeah, that's absolutely something that needs that maybe should be taken into consideration, is especially in tactical engagements, because the tactical engagements can only go so different.
Yeah.
But as far as the campaign, I think, can throw you more curveballs. So, like you were saying, having if I'm creating the mission, and I'm referring to on a campaign setting here. If I created a package, sometimes I want to have the another someone else uh, go go and take lead of that package, and I just fly as a flight lead or even a wingman, and I just keep my mouth shut. Uh, but then again, like the tactical engagements can offer there can be some surprises, but more so from the creator, the person that created that mission. Uh, it's more so the creator that will set up those surprises, those curveballs. not so much the engine itself. Maybe the way the aircraft, the enemy aircraft behave and where they go and what they do. Uh, I think the campaign has a wider range. I'm not sure if that's the expression, but it has a higher potential of like throwing a curveball at you. I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because the dynamic campaign, they do. I've had it where you do missions. So the first mission, nothing happens. So you have a package of 12 people, and you take out a SA2 or a 10 or whatever, and there are zero air threats. So it's like cool. So you go in there to get your thing done. You come back. Everybody's cool. We did this. We did that. And then the next mission, the dynamic campaign understands that you attacked this area before, and you happen to attack the same area. You get the flights that the dynamic campaign created when you were leaving from that first mission, depending on how much time you put between your missions. But if you put like an hour or so between your mission, the aircraft that you see could be the scramblers, quote unquote, from the last mission you did. Because depending on how far away they are from your area that you attacked. So the first mission may be very, very boring, but very, very productive when it comes to what you want to do. But the next mission could be completely impossible because they release their entire inventory of airplanes towards you, knowing that you're going to attack the same area. So that's something that the curveballs that the dynamic campaign kind of puts in and randomly randomizes the options available for different types of missions and depending on what you want to do.
I've even seen, and this was only one time. I'm not sure if you witnessed this yourself on a campaign, and we had this happen in multiplayer. Um, the we got in the we briefed fine. It was only like against North Korea, whatever. Um, but I'm not sure when it triggered. By the time we were airborne and over the target, we were facing Chinese aircraft, and the Chinese aircraft were not part of the conflict at the time we were briefing. Now we were striking very very far north on at into North Korea, but definitely like between the time it took us to get in pit, get started, fly all the way out there, and if I recall, we had to do a refueling. We had to do air refueling on the way there, so that uh, took some time. By the time we got to the target area, we were facing Su 30s or whatever it was, which was a really cool curveball. And if I recall, we had to call red wall and basically egress because there was no way we were going to hit that target without taking significant casualties. And like you were saying earlier, we have to multiplayer and single player. We have to weigh everything and think: do we really have to like take out this target right now? Is this like uh, end of the world? The aliens are about to fire their planet killing laser to destroy the Earth? I don't think so. Maybe it's more prudent to let them have this one. We get out of that area. Everybody comes back, and we go back with more planning, more insight about what expects us, and have a better built plan all around uh, when going back to the target area. Whenever we do go back,
Yes, it's definitely a priority thing where if you need to do this now, it's the acceptable risk is higher if you need to do this. If you don't need to do this right now, then you could leave. So when it comes to creating missions, and like you said, with the Chinese getting involved, it it could always be different based on what you planned. So you could have this 45-minute briefing of everybody. So you have 15 people, 16 people briefing. We have this threat, we have that threat, we want to do this, we're going to take out that. And then you get into the actual game and you're actually flying, and there's like a SA-20, making up a number. Like a SA-20 would be a significant difference in whatever you probably briefed, and that changes literally everything about your brief. So you plan for it to change all the time. And the hardest thing about missions is to be able to react and understand what you could do when the situation changes. um, the option is always there to change the mission altogether and just do air to air if you need to do air to air. So if you go up there, you're going after a, a SAM site and you have a flight of bombers who have bombs, you might have to have them to jettison their bombs and just protect ourselves with all the aircraft. So you have the cap flight, the Eagles doing their thing. You have the cap flight of Vipers doing their thing, and then you have a Seed and an Oka Strike and a Deed. They all have bombs and they were all ready to do air to ground, but they might all have to jettison their air to ground ordnance and just go air to air because of the situation we have at hand. And all the threats that we have, and we don't want them to chase us back to our airfield, and possibly take out our airfield. So the plan for every time you plan a mission in single player or even multiplayer, it could completely be changed once you get up in the area of responsibility and actually seeing what the situation is. And the situation can always change during the time it takes for you to get to the area. So yeah, planning is always very very difficult, and knowing when and what to do when stuff changes.
And I think there is no like this is just a hobby, but I know people are competitive. They want to get the job done, and even against like, oh, if we faced 50 Su-30s or whatever, we faced insurmountable odds, but we got the job done. I understand that, but at the same time, and especially if it's a campaign that you plan on running for a while. If it's a tactical engagement, go crazy. If you lose everybody, there's not much of a big deal unless like this is something that is the first tactical engagement of a series of tactical engagements, then that might not be the case. But on a campaign, um, there is no how am I gonna put this? I think there's no shame in coming and turning around and this, not today. This is not gonna work today. Let's work this target later. I think there is no shame in that. As much as I understand that people, like I said, are competitive and they like to brag, like, oh, we faced that, we got challenged by a flight of or several flights of whatever aircraft, but we pulled through and we blew up everybody. We lost aircraft, but we struck the target. I understand I understand that, but you know, it's to each their own. To each their own. But that's something that I think as you get experienced, maybe considered. That's all.
Yeah, the campaigns, it's very difficult, especially when I get a lot of questions from people who, because in single player, we're talking about a whole bunch of multiplayer stuff with online people, and you can actually task humans to do certain things. So in single player, which I'm doing a poll, or not a poll, but a survey right now of all the BMS community, and I got about 500, getting close to 500 people who put in responses, and I've seen there's about half of the players who responded only play single player, like 90% play single player. So I'm gonna see if I can talk about some of the single player campaign plans or campaign development that has to do, because it's totally different from a single player and a multiplayer. So if you do missions in single player, you probably won't necessarily have a whole package unless you have the campaign actually create your own packages, which can be problematic because sometimes the campaign puts you all the way north into enemy territory trying to take out, I don't know, a tank, and it's like, I can't do that. We need to take out the SAMs first to actually get all the way over there to be able to take out stuff. So in single player, sometimes you have to create your own missions and create the AI to help you out. But it is difficult to create missions in single player because the AI is not always they don't have the fidelity of a human. But still, in single player, you need to first take out the SAMs, take out the airfields if you can, and if possible, try to have your wingman help you out in those senses, because you can't do any of those things by yourself. So you need to have AI wingmen. And we're always talking about doing multiplayer because humans have more fidelity in actually uh, doing stuff. So in single player, it is harder to create campaigns, but it's a good way to learn your threats and your air threats and your ground threats to be able to move on to multiplayer to be able to understand what's going on with other folks. But there is definitely a difference between creating missions in single player and creating missions in multiplayer due to the fact that your AI may not be as helpful as they would as a human. But when it comes to the actual planning process and the targets and the priorities is relatively the same, but the fact that you might not be able to do it is a little different from multiplayer and single player.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the beauty of I think um, Falcon BMS multiplayer, even DCS multiplayer, uh, not just BMS. DCS is like that as well. Is in BMS currently. I mean, I'm not sure if this is going to be built on or not. But currently, the only people you have control of is your own flight if you're the flight lead. But as far as the package goes, you have no control over them. If you're in the same frequency, you'll hear what they are doing, like they're marshaling, they're departing the push point, they are RTB, but you can't tell them, hey, don't go. If, say you're part of a single player package and you're running a seat flight, you can't go and communicate to them and say, hey, don't go past this point right now, not yet, because we still haven't detected the SAM that we suspect is there, or we have a missile in the air that's just hasn't impacted yet, or was there's still some sort of unforeseen circumstance happening. In in multiplayer, that's much more involved, and that's something that then can be worked out. And that's, like I said, like it's for me the beauty of BMS BMS multiplayer, of combat flights and multiplayer, really.
Yeah, that is something you can't control your AI from you can't Rolex, you can't delay the package due to circumstances that you have not taken care of something. But yeah, that's definitely another thing that single player can be a little bit different. So you need to be on time based on the briefed time. So you need to be take off at this time, you need to push at this time, and then the target needs to be destroyed at this time so the next flight can come in at their time. Yeah, that is definitely something else you can't do in single player, but multiplayer you can always tell them to uh, delay the plan. So speaking of creating stuff in multiplayer and single player and the mission plans, so another important aspect is what you're going after. So if the target when it comes to weapons, so if you're going after an airfield, you're not going to use CBUs. So you're going to use like a GBU 31 or a armor piercing, or was it like yeah, the AP round or the
Yeah,
AP
yeah, the GBU
or
31. I forget, but yeah, there's an AP one there that's definitely needed for the runway, or BLU 109.
yeah, so actually get the runway and like destroy it to take and destroying it like that, it takes the repair crew longer to repair it. And of course, if you have more holes, the longer it takes to repair. So definitely know what weapon you're going to be using to go after your target. Same thing with terrain. If you are looking at your target and you see a whole bunch of mountains everywhere, you might not be able to do a low level attack in a mountainous terrain, and vice versa. If there's like a whole bunch of a flat area and you know it has SAMs, you're probably not going to be able to do a low level attack because of the inability to not get looked at by the SAMs. So there's a whole bunch of layers when it comes to planning, depending on what your target type is, the location of it. Also, if it's mobile, so if it moves around, you need to be able to bring laser targeted bombs. So you're not going to use GPS because they can't move or they can't be targeted on a moving target. So make sure you have laser, and if it's static, make sure you could also use lasers, but you do have the ability to use GPS. And again, when it comes to lasers, make sure you look at the weather. Make sure there's not a whole bunch of clouds everywhere, making it more difficult to use lasers. But mission planning also involves the what the target is and what you're actually going to get there, because you could get to your target and you just went through all these different SAMs and all these different aircraft, but you don't have the correct weapon to actually take down the target. So you need to have a fine line between what you need for the mission and what you need to actually successfully get to the target to successfully get that mission done. So little bit of stuff on how to planning a mission when it comes to like the situation of the target.
Yeah, absolutely. The having the correct weapon, like again, for example, the taking out a runway. You can definitely take out a runway or take out an airbase just with, I don't know, Mark 82s. You can do damage to it, but understand that it's not might not be sufficient damage to ground the aircraft that are launching from there. And also, there in the dynamic campaign, engineering units are a thing. The engineering units are going to have less of a problem getting that airbase back online into full capacity. Taking out a runway, like Prime said, the GBU 31 penetrator. There's a BLE 109s. There's also the GBU 27, if I'm not mistaken, and a variant of the GBU 24 uh, that has a penetrator warhead. So yeah, absolutely plan your loadout according to the task at hand. Know your weapons, and that's a big part of the planning. Like Prime said, you don't want to bring a laser guided weapon if it's overcast and you need to go under the weather and the cloud layers like 8,000 feet, because okay, fine, I can down here I can see the target, but then you are exposed to a whole lot of threats, manpads, Tunguskas, SA-15s, whatever you name it, it's going to be shooting at you.
Yes, definitely. And the planning of stuff, and you don't want to get too low because of all the Tentacus and even the AAA. And also, if it's at night, night kind of matters too. So all the night stuff that comes into play when it comes to planning your mission, because daytime and nighttime are definitely two totally different things, and it's two totally different worlds when it comes to planning missions and actually going out and doing it. But that's about an hour and a half. Just want to keep these podcast discussions to about an hour and a half. I do appreciate the first episode seems to be a hit. Seems like people like it. Looking forward to releasing this one, and hopefully you learn something about creating missions, how to approach BMS when it comes to dynamic campaigns. What are the different types of dynamic campaigns and different types of threats in those dynamic campaigns? And I really hope you are enjoying this podcast. Make sure you comment down below. And if anything else or any last words from Fiscus, I'll go ahead and let him say them.
No, that was all. It was a very insightful conversation. I hope the people listening got something out of it, even if like a bunch of them are like veterans that know as much or even more than we do about this simulator. Uh, but yeah, thanks for hosting it, and I'm happy with the first episode went well, and see you on the next one, I guess.
Yep, I'll see ya. See y'all later.